welcome to the video. So today I wanted to do something a little different than what I normally do and just going out and fishing. Today I really wanted to go over my top baits over the last couple trips that I've taken out and go over my predictions for January and what baits I think are going to do really well throughout January. And I want to explain to you the type of weather conditions and the situations on when you would want to throw these baits and where I've had success throwing them. I like doing these videos because it helps me go back and look back and see what's a consistent lure or presentation throughout the year, or if it's a super seasonal deal. And it helps me teach you guys maybe something new, or maybe a presentation that you wouldn't really associate with winter or whatever time of year we're doing this. And it really gives me the opportunity to kind of share what I've been learning. So the first bait I really want to start off with has been cranking. Winter cranking has been fantastic. All of December and now into January, I've had a super consistent bite throwing various types of crankbaits. The number one being the lipless. Now, the lipless crankbait is super versatile. And that's the reason why I started throwing it so much, was especially pond hopping. You can fish it deep, you can fish it shallow, you can fish it slow, fast. It really doesn't matter. It's super versatile rather than having to bring 4 or 5 different crankbaits to do whatever I want it to do. And then on the kayak, it's been even better. This is the original rattle trap. You can see, now this thing's beat up, it's got no eyes left, and there's all kinds of teeth marks and scratches all over it because it's just been getting hammered the last several trips out. Done really, really good on this bait. It's been such a consistent killer. And the reason why I feel like this one in particular shines is the tight wobble it has. Now, lipless cranks generally have a very tight wobble, and this does have a rattle in it. But it's not super, super loud. It's not super, super annoying as you get as a lot of square bills. This lure, it having that really tight wobble is a little bit more of a subtle presentation, which you want in the winter. Subtle is better. Now you could take a normal square bill that's round, and it tends to wobble a lot bigger action side to side, and it deflects a lot more whenever it's hitting a structure, rock, or wood, or whatever it may be. It really deflects off and makes big, scary, loud movements, which is great when the water's warm and they're really active. Not to say that they're not still super active and super chasing. That's a huge misconception of the winter, is that the fish just shut down and get super lethargic. They really don't. They still eat. Their metabolism slows down, so they don't need to eat as much because it takes them longer to digest their food. But if you put a presentation in front of them, they can chase down a bait just as fast as they can in the middle of July. Doesn't really make a difference. So crank has been awesome. Like I said, the lipless has done really good, and then switching it up a while back, I tried a flat-sided square bill. So this is the Googan Banger, flat-sided banger. You can see right here. So this only goes about 3 to 6 feet, and any of your baits with the flat side, like I said, are going to have a lot tighter wobble. They're not going to be super loud and obnoxious. Now this still comes through structure and cover very, very well, and it's still got a rattle in it, but it's a lot more subtle than a square bill, than its standard square bill brother. And had some phenomenal days on this. The fire crawl color did really well for me. This time of year, a crawfish, a lot of people think that the crawfish just dig down into the mud and just hibernate all winter. That's not true at all. They stay out and about the whole time. There's actually a lot of all your grass, like your hydrilla, your eelgrass, or any kind of grass, is dying this time of year and sinking down to the bottom, which creates all kinds of forage for these crawdads. So they bury themselves up in that decaying foliage, and it gives them so much nutrients. So they fatten up kind of in the winter a lot like other fish species do. And so those bass are still hunting craws, and it's such a high protein snack. Especially the bigger fish really like to key in on red this time of year. You should be throwing red from, I would say, mid-December all the way through the spring all the way into the spawn. They really hate red, especially when it comes to fry, but pre-spawn is just such a high calorie snack for them. Like I said, their metabolism is really slow right now, so they would rather have one good meal a day than 5 or 6 little minnows or little baits. It's just so much more, it helps them save their calories a lot better, and it helps them grow faster. So red has been a really good color. This one's all scratched and beat up from all the teeth. It's been a really good lure for me. Now, the conditions I've been throwing the crankbait in, ideally you want just a little bit of wind and or murky water. This time of year, most of your water has been stagnant for the last several months, so everything's had time to settle, so you tend to see a lot more clear water versus very stained water that you see in the spring from all the snow runoff and whatnot. So clear water is not your friend, really, in any situation. Ultra clear water is tough fishing. So I like a little bit of stain in my water and or some wind if you're going to throw something that's got some irritation to it. But bluebird skies in the winter is awesome because the more heat hitting that water, it's going to bring those fish shallow. They stay down deep the majority of the winter, but they love to come up in sun, especially those big females. Here pretty soon, by the end of January, they're going to have to come up and start sunning themselves because they have to get their core body temp up high enough to start getting the eggs ready to be laid. They got to start incubating those eggs. So the big females are going to have to come up in sun. They don't have a choice. So I'm looking for a warmer day, and not just one singular day, like we just had a cold front come through. So I'm going to wait 2 or 3 days until after the cold front, post-frontal, and let it warm up a little bit before I go out and I start cranking. Just trying to get that water temp up. Like the day right after a thunderstorm or after a cold front or snowstorm, whatever it may be, that's not a good day to do it. You're looking for an actual warming trend, 3 or 4 days of warming. But bluebird skies actually helps this time of year rather than hurting you like it does in the summer, because it's bringing those fish up shallow. Now, the caveat to that is if I'm in ultra clear water, high pressure fish, and no wind to help me kind of disguise that lure, I have another option. This is the Berkley blade bait. This is in a 1/4 ounce. Now, blade bait, you're going to fish it the same way you would throw a lipless crankbait. It's just a metal lipless crankbait. It's a little smaller profile, and there's no rattle. This thing just wobbles side to side. And so the only noise it's making is the water displacement from it shaking. So it's a little subtler, works really well when the fish are kind of lock-lipped and a little bit more lethargic, and just not wanting to chase. If you're not able to draw that chase, a blade bait works really well. You can hop it off the bottom, you can jig it. It's a relatively versatile bait, but it really shines when you can't get them to bite on the louder presentations. Now, that being said, the next bait that I'm going to talk about is one I just found. I just started throwing it the last couple trips out. I've never tried it before, but it's really shined in the more open water situations. Now that all the grass and everything has died off the majority of the bodies of water this time of year because of the cold water, there's a lot more open water, even though the water's low. So fishing this around rock or ledges or points has been really, really productive this time of year. And that's the Neko rig. Okay, this is kind of somewhat of a micro version of it. You can upsize this as much as you would like. This is just a standard little circle hook that I use for wacky rigging or drop shotting or anything like that. And this is a Zoom curly tail worm. It's about a 5-incher. And the trick is you're going to put a nail weight in. It's a little 1/16 nail weight. You're going to put that in the nose of this bait. And what that does is it causes this bait to fall nose down. And whenever it hits the bottom, it's going to stand up, and this little curly tail is going to kind of do its own thing. Now, this isn't a bait you're going to work super aggressively. You're not over here hopping, twitching, and doing all kinds of crazy stuff with. I've literally been letting it hit the bottom and just holding it there, counting to 5, picking it up, setting it down. Wiggle, wiggle, maybe. Little tiny shakes to it, just a little bit of attention. Really, because that nose is standing up, there's enough natural current and movement in water generally to make that tail do some form of action. In the winter, less is more. The less action and the slower you can fish a bottom contact bait, all the better. Now, if I was going to fish this in the summer or late spring, I'm going to pop it a lot more. I'm going to give it a lot more action on my own because I'm trying to really provoke that aggressive bite, especially if I'm fishing around bedfish. But in the winter, less is more. Now, you can upsize this and fish it really with any worm you like that's not a Senko. Okay, you want to throw it on something that's got some kind of tail action. Okay, whether that be a curly tail worm or a finesse worm, or anything in that matter. That's really what you want to aim for. Now, you can size up if you're chasing bigger fish, or if you're fishing deeper, I'm going to size up and I'm going to put a heavier nail weight in it. This is really just for fishing super shallow, 10 feet or less. Now, if I'm really wanting to upgrade from that in terms of size of fish and presentation, the other option you have, this one's tied on, so, is what's called shaky head. This is the 6 Sense shaky head. This is just a flat jig head with I think this is a 3/0 hook, and this is the Divine shaky head worm, but these are categorized as a finesse worm. And a characteristic of a finesse worm is it's thicker at the bottom and then it tapers and you have this little bulb tail, and that's really buoyant. So when this hits the water, she stands up on her nose and this tail is kind of giving all kinds of action and doing its own thing, just like the Nico rig. And it's been very productive for me the last couple times. Same thing, I'm fishing this super slow, 1 or 2 shakes maybe, hopping it about every 5-6 seconds and working it. And you're really not going to feel the bite on either of these. It's not like a Texas rig or a Jaeger where you're going to feel that thump or that tick. 90% of the fish I've caught on it, I've went to pick it up to move it and I just feel weight, or I see my line take off, and then you're just going to pop them. Just remember, if you're fishing a shaky head, set the hook straight up, not to the side like a lot of people's natural instinct is, kind of at like a 45-degree angle. You kind of rip it over your shoulder, straight up. But it's been a super killer. Those days when they do not want to chase anything moving, we're talking post-frontal. We just had a storm roll through, so the day after a storm or a cold front or anything like that, the fish aren't going to want to come off the bottom. They're going to be a little more lethargic. They're going to be a little slower. So then a bottom contact bait is a way to go. You're going to throw this and fish it super slow. If you think you're fishing slow enough, cut it in half and you might be there. Super duper duper slow. But super consistent too. Even when they're lockjawed, I'm able to at least pull a couple fish off. And this time of year, I'm not going out trying to crank 100 fish a day. I'm really fishing for just a couple of bites. But in the winter, the fish are fattening up. They're getting ready for the spawn. This is the time of year when you can catch the giants. The last bait that I want to talk about is a wintertime staple, and it's not really a surprise to anybody, probably, but that's a jerkbait. Jerkbaits are on. I've got a jerkbait tied on probably every day I go out fishing, regardless of time of year. They're not just wintertime bait, but they are definitely worth it in the winter. The difference between my jerkbait presentations is I really like to throw them generally on spinning gear. I like to throw them on braid to fluoro leader, like 8-pound leader. It's a little more subtle. I feel like I get a better action out of them. And their hooks are very thin gauge wire. So if you try and horse a fish in on a jerkbait, you're doing it wrong. You're just gonna lose a lot of fish and you're gonna get frustrated because you're gonna bend these hooks. you should have your drag set fairly loose, light line, and really let that fish play themselves out. Now this is the Googan Scout Junior. This is kind of a translucent shad color. Now talking about water clarity again and situations I want to be throwing this, you can throw this any day, regardless of weather conditions. Now I prefer to have a little bit of wind because it is a moving bait in a sense. I prefer to have a little bit of wind and a little bit of water stain, but this time of year, most of the water's clear, like I said. So I'm going to adjust my presentation of my color based upon water clarity and wind that day. So this is a very translucent color. I'm going to be throwing this in the clear water. It doesn't let the fish get that good of a look at it. So the clearer the water you're fishing, generally I'm going to throw way more translucent. Versus if I've got some wind or if I'm fishing stained water, I'm going to throw more of a matte or solid color. Such as this. Now this is the 6th Sense Provoke jerkbait. They have these really cool shad wrap colors that are awesome. This thing's a killer. And the difference is too, in stained water, I want to upsize. A little bit bigger presentation, a little bit more water displacement, helps the fish key in on that a little bit better. Once again, if I'm fishing super clear water or very finessey situations, bluebird skies, no wind, I'm going to size down. If I can be more aggressive, I'm going to size up, and I'm going to try and get that bigger fish. Talking about January, now we're into January, first couple weeks of January. My predictions are nothing's really going to change right now. This is the coldest month of the year for us. Of course, I live in southern Arizona, so cold is relative. Our cold front that came through got us down into the 40s in the middle of the day, which for a lot of people isn't cold at all to them, but that's pretty cold for us. So I think that's gonna push the fish pretty deep, but now it's warming. We've got a bit of a warming trend before this next storm rolls in, so I'm gonna try and get out and test my theories. But with these cold fronts rolling through, I think it's gonna be really the same thing. I think the Nico and the shaky head are really gonna shine. Anytime those fish are lockjawed. And I think that the crank-in bite and the jerkbait bite is going to be great when they're not. I'm going to keep fishing these presentations pretty much until the end of the year, and then once February kicks in, we'll probably change it up a little bit and start fishing more pre-spawn, spawn baits. But we'll go over that when we get there. But yeah, that's pretty much been everything that I've been throwing this winter that I've had good luck with. I've tried jigs, which I know is a super popular wintertime bait, and I've caught a couple on them. I've had some bites, but I just haven't had that kind of luck on them. Not to say that they don't work, because I know they do. I just haven't been able to figure them out yet. So that's something in the future I want to learn and I want to get better at. I really want to push to be a good jig fisherman, but that just comes with time. But anyways, guys, I really appreciate you guys tuning in and going over these baits with me. I'm going to try and do this every month and just kind of touch base and make predictions for the next time. If you've got any baits that you think would do better or any baits that you want me to try, please drop me a comment and let me know, and I'll make sure to give them a shot and see if maybe we can figure out something or you guys know something that I don't. I really appreciate the sharing of knowledge, and I'm going to keep trying new baits and new tactics all throughout the year and sharing them with you guys. So I appreciate you guys watching, and see you next time.